Okay, good evening, folks. Everybody hear me okay? We all right up back? Can you hear up back okay? All right. Okay. All right. Again, thank you for coming this evening, folks. My name is Al Kozlowski. I will be the moderator for tonight's event. I think what we'd like to do first is just kind of give the mic to each candidate, if they could kind of introduce themselves and present what they're going for.
Thank you. Thank you to the Scituate Chamber of Commerce and all the candidates that are here tonight. My name is Martin O'Toole. I'm a current selectman running for office again. I ran 4 years ago as a write-in. I lost by a handful of votes. I ran the following year. I'm just very interested in what's going on in town, and I've realized after I've been elected that there's a lot more involved than what people think. It's easy to say we don't want to raise taxes, we don't want to do this, we don't want to do that, but it's very, very involved. And to be on this side, it's been interesting, it's been challenging, and I'm ready for another 3 years.
I'd like to thank the Chamber, the moderators, and all of you for coming tonight. My name is Keith Wallow. I'm 52 years old. I have a beautiful wife, Colleen Litchfield Wallow, and 4 children, 3 grandchildren. I've been on the Waterways Commission for 7 years. Before I bought Harbor Mooring, which is a small company in Scituate Harbor, I was a district manager for an international food service company. I had a $34 million budget, had 56 managers reporting to me. So I think I have the experience to manage the people and the budget. And I look forward to all of you voting for me. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is John Danahy. I am a selectman currently. I've been doing this and I've been honored to serve all of you for the past 9 years. And I'm running for seat number 2. And appreciate your vote coming next Saturday, and look forward to any questions you may have to answer to you folks this evening. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Carlton on the Library Board of Trustees. I'm currently the chairman of the board and I'm running for re-election. I'm a retired university administrator from Boston University. I have 2.3 grandchildren. I've been on the board longer than I can remember. This might well be it for me, but I've been pleased and honored to work on behalf of the citizens of Scituate. I hope you're all pleased with the progress on the library renovation and expansion. We have a great library, wonderful staff, and our job is to advise them and advocate for them, and that's what I'm going to do for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to the Chamber for having us, everybody here this evening. I'm Phyllis Carlberg. I'm running for selectman, seat number 2. And I have to say that I don't have a lot of past political experience, but I have been in town here since 1962. I've been a taxpayer in my own home for the last 39 years. And I'm really not happy with the way that us seniors, myself at 61, are struggling to stay in town here. And I think that we have offered a lot to the town in the past, and I just feel that we're getting the open the door and out you go kind of feeling. So that's why I'm putting my foot in the door here, and please consider me for election. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. My name is Richard Hebert. I'm running for re-election to the school committee position 2. I've been on the board for 2 terms. This will be my 3rd. I've spent my whole life teaching here in Scituate. I was a school teacher at Gates for 35 years. I was a union president, I was a principal, and now I'm a school committee president. So I think I have a very unique skill set to see situations and problems from a lot of different angles. So I really appreciate your vote. Looking forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
And good evening. My name is Mike Hayes. I'm a local attorney for 37 years. I am running for election for seat 1, I believe it was on the school committee. Some of you may remember me. I've been was on the school committee for 26 years. I got off a couple of years ago. And circumstances changed in my life at that time, and circumstances with Robin stepping down led me to put my papers in and ask for your vote to get back on the school committee. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. I may add, just aside, Mr. Heber was my favorite teacher when I was in school. And he actually molded me into what I am today. Thank you. Basically, I'm sorry. We have another candidate, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you all for coming. My name is Stephen Coulter, and I'm running for the Housing Authority seat. I'm actually the chair of the Housing Authority presently, and for the last 5 years we've worked very, very hard to improve the situation in the Housing Authority and to take care of the seniors that are currently living there in our 3 projects. We're actually looking to move forward to help to increase the stock for the affordable senior rental property in town. Looking forward to continue the good work that we have started with that. So thank you all for coming. Look forward to your questions.
All right, thank you, candidates. Basically, this evening, folks, what I think we will do, we are lucky enough to have a couple very well-known people here. We have Sarah Moskowitz and Grace Strong. They were winners of the South Shore League debate team representing Scituate High School. So basically, I think we'll start off. They have a couple of questions they would like to ask. As we get going during the evening, folks, what we'll do, if you will raise your hand, one of the girls will come around, give you the mic. We ask that you kind of keep it relatively brief. Pick out whoever you want to have answer the question, and we'll go from there. Any other questions? All right, girls, you want to start off?
Okay, so this would be towards candidates running for school committee. We were wondering if you would consider making the school budget a little more transparent. As high school athletes, me and Sarah both kind of wonder, where does the money go? Because it's $300 per sport per season that you want to play, and we also have activity fees, and we don't get new uniforms. If we want extra supplies, we pay for it ourselves. And we've asked the coaches, they don't know really where the money goes. So would you consider making it a little more transparent for parents who are paying the $300 each season for their student athletes?
Transparency, it's there. The trouble is, you have to go through many, many pages to see it. It is posted, the budget is posted. Paul Donlin, our business director, would be happy to show anybody the paperwork involved in that transparency. The trouble is, it's not, you can't just open one page and see it. You see lines and lines and pages of minute details. But it is there. Second, though, I'd like to correct something you said. There are no activity fees now. As long as they are not something that you have to pay someone like a referee or an umpire. We took away the activity fees this year. So we're trying. It's, as you know, once you institute something like activity fees or sports charges, you become very dependent upon those. So we are slowly trying to pull those back as much as possible. So we did away with activity fees. We experimented this winter, for example. Kids who have Scituate IDs could get into the basketball games for nothing, to try to give them a nice place, safe place to go on a Friday night to enjoy themselves for a while, but also not to, to try to lift a little bit of a financial burden from the kids and from their parents. But thank you for that question, because transparency is, of course, always something that everybody wants or strives for anyway.
Well, I agree with Rich that anybody that wants to see where just about every penny in the budget goes, can find it. And there are ways to, whether we go to budget hearings or just call Paul Lund and ask to sit down with him. He'll go through all of his budget anytime. And I'm very happy that we've gotten rid of the activity fees and we're experimenting with letting Scituate children into Scituate sporting events for free. I've been opposed to any type of fee throughout my career in the school committee, whether it's with the activity fee, the bus fee, paying to get into sporting events. In the Massachusetts Constitution, every person in Massachusetts has the right to a free and appropriate education. And fees and paying to get into sporting events is contrary to the Mass Constitution. I feel I've been opposed. I know it is difficult when you get used to a certain stream of funding to give it up, but I'll continue to encourage the rest of the school committee and the administration to, with a $34 million budget, fees are unnecessary.
Maybe just as a little follow-up for me to just go back on what you guys were saying. I definitely think that the $300 sports fee is reasonable, and I think it's great that you guys made it a $900 cap for kids that have multiple kids in the family or people that are 3-sport athletes. But is there any way, I think our question was about making it more transparent. Of course we can go and look in like thick files of paper to find where the money is going, but is there any way that you would consider maybe putting it online on a sheet and making it just more accessible, like on the Scituate Public Schools website, and sort of saying like, this is where your $300 is going for these sports, this is what we need to pay coaches, this is what we need to pay the referees that are doing roughing the games, this is how much the equipment is costing, this is how much uniforms are every year, just because $900 is a lot per family to pay for sports.
I agree it is a lot of money, obviously, and I'm not in favor of it. You know, families have to pay their taxes and they have to pay fees for their children to attend school. And if you walk around any school in Scituate, whether it's the high school or an elementary school or the middle school, teachers are scrambling for paper, pencils, paper towels, everything. And I think that we can do better. And I think we can also do better, as you suggest, for that specific question as to where those fees go. The fees go into the big bucket, basically, of the $30+ million. But you know, I can certainly, if I'm elected, talk to the superintendent and Paul to see what we can do to address that question.
And in general numbers, since I don't have the statistics in front of me right now, the athletic program is about a $300,000 program. You're taking all the sports. And the fees that they collect run somewhere around $78,000, I think, last year. So as you can see, it helps, but it doesn't cover the whole expense. So what you would see if they did generate that sheet is you would see it in the tallies, you know, the money coming in from fees being $74,000 or $78,000, but the fact that the bed budget itself takes care of the rest. But no, I agree with that, you know, we could try to do something like that so people could see it, but basically you'd see that it's only a portion of the actual athletic budget that being covered by those fees.
All right, thank you. Before we go any further, you know, one thing I want to add is, having lived in Scituate for many years, I think the most important thing you can give back to a town, commit to a town, is your time. And any of these candidates, incumbents, and candidates, I admire for the fact that they are putting their time in for the town of Scituate. I think that should be very appreciated. Okay, these are questions apparently from the audience. Now, I just received this card. These questions have been written on index cards. Choose these first questions from the floor are probably not good. All right, first question. This is for the selectmen. Are you in favor of an override in the next year or two?
Thank you. Needless to say, no. I think that we have been really pushed to the limit as far as financial we just can't take anymore. Maybe there are some people in town that can financially support some of these projects, but there's 40% of the population within the town that is senior citizen age. Many of them are living on incomes that are not suitable to be paying more in taxes. I get to see a large cross-section of people within the town. I work right in the harbor. I deal with people every day, and I'm floored. Every day I see two people that are talking about having to move out of town because they can't afford to stay. These are people that have helped me through my growing up here in town, formed me to be the person that I am today through your scout leaders, your Sunday school teachers, your teachers from Scituate High and grade school, and I bump into them every day. I'm fortunate to be able to see them, but I don't think that they can be stretched financially any further. And I think that that's something that we have to consider in a town, is how far do we push people financially, whether they're seniors or not. They maybe are younger. I've seen a lot of younger people that are that have moved into the town and have to rethink being here. So, no, I would not be in favor.
You know, being involved in downtown politics for the past 9 years as selectman, prior to that 6 years on the boards of zoning board of appeals, I've seen an awful lot going on in town. There have been a lot of needs for a number of years that have not been addressed. People were always complaining about brown water going on for 60 years, and we needed to fix that. People complained about our middle school, the fact that we have the oldest middle school in the Commonwealth, 100 years old today, and we're trying to address that and fix it. People complaining about our fire station. In 2007, when I first ran, the Minot Fire Station, the number 4 fire station, was turned down at town meeting in the vote. We addressed that with a new public safety building. And the one issue that I have to tell you, the reason why I'm running for re-election, is in 2007 there was another issue unaddressed for a number of years relating with the community center concerning our seniors. So the reality is we as a town together need to address all issues for all people, including our seniors. And the one thing that I am looking to try to accomplish in the next 3 years is have some resolution as to a senior center. It failed in 2007, it can't fail again, and it needs to move out of the Brook Street. So if that means an override, a debt exclusion override, that goes into place for 20 years and then comes off the tax roll, then yes, indeed, I am for it. Thank you.
I guess I would be against an override at this point. I won't talk about the past projects because they've all been voted in and we've already accepted them, so to keep hashing those over doesn't seem to do anyone any good. I would say going forward that there are projects that need to be taken on. Something's going to have to happen to Gates, something's going to have to happen to the town hall. There has to be a senior center. We've got elementary schools that are falling apart, something has to be done. But it doesn't have to all be on the taxpayer's back. So there are ways to do things, and we have to be creative on how we do those things, and not just go out and say, we have to do this project, let's do an override and let's charge the taxpayers. There's ways to make things happen, and that's what we need to look for. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Danny stole a lot of the thunder, but I have to say that I agree with all three candidates in one way or another. I believe there are ways to get, the seniors absolutely have to be taken care of. That's my priority right now. I also don't want an override, so there are some things that we need to look at. We're going to have a lot of available land, buildings and such that we could do something with. They could be repurposed. There's things that can happen. If we had to have an override to do a senior center, I'd have to say I would be in favor of it, but it couldn't be to the point where we are now. I mean, we're basically carrying everything on taxpayers' backs, as everybody has said here. The situation being a tiny little senior center with, as Ms. Kalberg said, we're at about 39%, 58 plus, I believe is the number. And we can't ignore the seniors. They've been passed over for many years. But again, I don't want to stretch these people's wallets at the same time. So I guess we have a lot to look at. To say, I would have to say I'm against an override, but I don't want to say that I'm 100% against it. I want to look at all the facts, all the things that are happening after these projects are completed to see where we're at. In a few years, we're going to have Jenkins fall off, and that'll be taken care of and paid off. If we could equal out that money and put a senior center in place, I think that everybody would be happy with that. Thank you.
Okay, I think this is going to continue in the same realm. If we could prioritize senior center, elementary schools, town hall. Again, this would be for the selectmen.
All right, in a list of priorities, I do also believe that the seniors have been neglected within the town, so I would put them as the priority for the time being. Where they get a new facility that seats all their needs, I'm not sure where is the proper place right now. But yes, they need something. Schools, I think that would be next. I know that at this last town meeting, they approved the funding to fix up the two schools at Hadley and Cushing. So the big ticket item is getting taken care of with the schools, but yes, they definitely need some TLC. The town hall, and I'm going to be very honest here, I think that the town hall has put this town into a position that there were so many things that needed to be addressed, and yet they went for the gold. They went for a high-ticket item when there were so many other town needs that needed to be taken care of before you went for the gold. Yes, it needs to be addressed somewhere along the line, but I'm not sure that, in my opinion, it's at the top of the pedestal. So, 1, 2, 3. I like your order. Thank you.
Al, just as a clarification, is it schools or school fields, or what did you actually?
This is elementary schools.
Elementary school. Fair enough. Okay. So, folks, as I said in the past, there are wants and there are needs. And what we have done as a town together, sanctioned by you at town meeting and also voted upon in the ballot box, is to address the town needs. We've had needs for years. As I said, the water. Water has been brown since the 1950s, when the water department used to put out a press release saying, if you have brown water, guess what? We're not gonna pay for fixing it. In other words, your laundry. Well, that's been going on 60 years. And we as a board decided to try to go pay as you go. $1 million this year, $1.5 million that year, and in 2012 we found out, holy cow, there's such a big problem. We have to take a different course of action. And so we did. $22 million to fix the water so that everybody has clean water. A fundamental thing as a town has to provide is water, safe water. And it's being addressed. We're addressing it together. You talk about your middle school, and as I said to you, yes indeed, a 100-year-old building. The junior high actually, the first building built for the junior high is actually the C wing, not too far from here, at Gates. They've always gotten set from the high school, and they moved into Gates, which happened to be a high school. It was never built for a junior high, and it served its purpose. It's done it well, but it's old, it's tired, it's not accessible. Can you imagine, and Michael could be a prime example, or other people here who try to get from one end to another in a wheelchair or crutches? It doesn't suit today's purpose, and it shouldn't. That's why we needed a new building. It's not a overtime item. It's a need. You talk about the public safety building. Instead of building two separate buildings, the police and fire, we decided no. Why don't we merge them together? And on top of that, after the devastating storms that we've had since 2010, we put an operating center for emergencies, emergency operating center, to address our needs, not a want, a need. I've seen people down on the coastline. I've seen seawalls breached. I've seen the need of this town to address its foreshore protection, whether it's seawalls or whether it's foreshore protection up and down this coastline. I've seen 3 to 4 feet cobblestone up and down the Central Ave in Humrock, as well as in Sand Hills and up in Minot. The bottom line here is this. In order to get what you want, you have to find the revenue source. And our town is based upon property taxes. I would love to get grants. I would love to be able to say to the state, you pay for the seawalls, or the feds, you pay for this, or let's get a grant for our senior center. Let me tell you, there were a lot of dedicated people who worked so hard on our senior center in 2004 when it first passed for a $1.9 million building behind Central School. And as a result of some issues that happened prior to my getting on the board and town meeting, it failed because it went to get a $2.9 million to make a 10,000 square foot building to fit the needs, not the wants, the needs of our seniors. It's time that we address those needs. And our board, since 2010, have identified a strategic plan. Strategic being to address the needs that are listed. 5 are listed. Public safety, senior center, middle school, the library, and yes, indeed, we're dealing with the town hall. Now, why is the town hall? What are you going to do with gates? If you get a middle school, you put them there. Well, we looked into that. We looked into an idea of whether we could keep the kids at the middle school. We determined, no, indeed, it does not going to work. So we have to put them at another location. So what are you going to do with Gates Middle School? We can tear it down, we can sell it. You can put houses there. You can put a 40B there. You can generate tax revenue. Those are decisions and choices that all of you are going to be seeing very shortly, because the Adaptive Building Reuse Committee is going to come back to the Board of Selectmen and say, these are some options. You folks are going to decide, not the board. You, at town meeting and at votes. So when you get back to all our needs, the senior center is the most important. If we can get the fields, great. Town hall, so be it, we can keep it there. But you folks are going to decide that. And I personally, for one, believe it's time for the seniors to have a better building, something better than what we have. And it's really abysmal and terrible that we have the building we have presently today. Thank you.
I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, just like everyone else did. Senior center, schools, town hall. Senior center should be the #1 priority right now. But I've heard, I think, 6 different proposals on 6 different ideas in 6 different places at 6 different costs. So I think we need to know what all those are and figure out exactly which one is best and can be done within the means of the town. There are some good ones, and there are some golden nuggets, is that what I heard earlier? And we need to figure out which is best for us. The schools, I'm sorry, but if you've been to some of the elementary schools right now, there's issues. There's bad issues in those schools. And preventive maintenance could have been a huge part of that, which is one of the things that I've written in some of the stuff I've talked about. And it was just written that the town is being proactive to preventive maintenance. And for anyone not to say that, it's factually inaccurate. I don't agree with that. I think that the preventive maintenance has been non-existent for years, and that's why we're spending $300,000 to replace a cupola or anything else that's that big. And when I'm talking about preventive maintenance, I'm not talking about a $60 million capital plan. I'm talking about, do you take your car in for a tune-up, or do you wait until it dies and then just get a new one? So I think the preventive maintenance needs to be that small and that minute that we can know each building and what has to be done. The town hall, I don't know if everyone knows it here, but I don't remember the exact date, it was either 88 or 98. There was a study done in the town hall, and the building for the town hall, that where it sits right now, can go up a floor and be modernized and look great for not $10 million or some huge amount of money. I think we need to revisit that, and maybe it's something that we can do going forward. Although, that being said, if you look at the plans for the school, somehow on the plans it already says that where the town hall is going to be used for fields. So I don't know how that decision could have been made. It'd be on small print on the plans already saying that that's where the fields are going to go. I don't understand how that got in there. But the town hall probably could be refurbished and redone. So I would say again, senior center, schools, town hall.
Well, I'm probably the same. Senior center is definitely a priority, but I'll tell you, the schools, especially the elementary schools, was the question. And we've had some issues, and we've been getting a little bit of feedback, negative feedback. We've had some roofs that were leaking in a couple of the elementary schools. We had to take some money out of stabilization to get these roofs straightened away. As everybody probably agrees in this room, there's been zero done with any of the buildings for many years. And I think it's been about 4 years, no, I guess it's 3 or 4 years ago we started the facilities department. They are monitoring and doing work on all of the buildings. The Gate School, obviously it was decided nothing could be done with the Gate School. We are doing everything we can at this point to bring the maintenance up to par. And again, so many of these projects, so many of these things were not done for many, many years. There was nothing done on them. So I guess my answer would be the senior center with a very close second on the elementary schools. And then again, town hall, I don't want to say much about town hall because the building use committee has been working tirelessly to figure out a plan for all of these things. And I'd like to see the presentation that they have, and then we can make some decisions on that. So, thank you.
Okay, again, a question for the selectmen. What would you do to encourage more businesses in town to help with the tax base?
Okay, so one of the things that people keep saying, why don't we increase our commercial tax base? We have the EDC right now looking at all possibilities. We have some, I don't want to steal someone's thunder because I spoke to them about it today, but we have some options in the Greenbush area and things like that as far as being able to do a mixed-use type of business as well as like an apartment condo thing. So, I mean, we're going to look at every possible spot that there is for commercial tax base. I was at a meeting the other night with the Cohasset Selectmen, and they're looking now, if you look at Cohasset, you would say, well, they're all set. They have shops, they have Stop and Shop. I have to tell you, even with all of that, they're not doing very well with the commercial tax base. But we have to look at every avenue to alleviate some of the taxes from the homeowners. But again, if you look at 3A and play it around town, anybody who has any suggestions on an area, I'd love to hear about it. But we are limited on what we can do. Thank you.
Okay, it's my background, so now I'm going to say it. Water, water, water. We need to grow the businesses in the harbor. We need to make sure our harbor is the way it's supposed to be. Whether everyone in this room knows it or not, the bylaws for the waterways right now are under attack. And I do use that word attack. They're presently trying to change about 40% of the rules on how the harbor runs. And it's going to make it a very...
Who's they?
I'm not sure who they happens to be. I know the harbor master is presenting it, but I'm not sure where it's directly coming from. The transients help the harbor grow, and everything that happens down in that harbor can be driven back to transients. A perfect example is this, which hasn't been approved yet by the town, but there's a chance we're going to get the America's Cup over in here in July. And I can't believe it hasn't been approved yet. It's a 140-foot boat. It's going to be a huge draw to this town. It's something that's never happened before and will never happen again. But instead of like working hard to get it pushed through, which I understand they've been working hard and they've been doing their thing, but I mean, it should have been almost a no-brainer. So things like just that one item, how much revenue is that going to bring to the town? How many people are going to come to the town for that? As far as the rest of the business, it's a tough line to walk because everybody likes the town quaint in the way it is, so you don't want a McDonald's or a Burger King on the corner. So it's a give and take. You're going to have to give some to not have those kind of places in this town. So, I guess that's all I have.
Can I just comment about it? Just a comment about the America's Cup that Keith brought up. It's an excellent idea. The board was before the Board of Selectmen the other evening, and we just have a couple of issues as far as, and I don't know, I'm not a real boater, so I'm sure Keith could blow me away on this, but we're concerned about the depth of this ship. I don't want to say it's a ship. I think it's 139 feet long, which is a very large boat. So we're a little concerned. We want to make sure the liability, first of all, we have to watch out for the best interest of the town. So we just have to make sure that that can get in and get back out again. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
And for those of you who are voters, the boat draft's 11 feet, which means there's 11 feet from where it's in the water to the bottom. At the end of the town pier, it's about 8 feet, 8.5 feet, somewhere in that range. Now, the harbor master has gone out and looked at it, and the people that own the boat say it's fine for it to sit on the bottom. So I don't see what the issue is with what it drafts. Everyone else seems to be okay with it, but we're still kind of stuck on it. We're not making it happen. But it is a huge thing for this town if we can get this boat in here.
All right, so the question is really dealing with how can we increase the percentage, if you will, of business in the town. The problem has been that it's about business in this town is about 4%. So to try to increase taxes and maybe ask the businesses to pay more and have a disparate treatment between the two, you really need to grow your basis or your tax basis for businesses to probably around 10%. There's a major difficulty because half of the land that we have, half of the area east of us is all water. So usually you get the business during the spring until the fall. So that's a problem, number one. Two, sewer's a big issue. You know, we've got North Scituate that doesn't have sewer, but we have the pipe that goes underneath the MBTA train track connected to our sewer treatment plant. But the problem with that is that the next neighborhood lined up at the Tree Streets off of Beaver Dam Road, they're supposed to get the sewer before North Scituate. So that's going to be an issue that you, the folks, are going to have to decide in the future whether you're going to leapfrog, if you will, North Scituate for their benefit. The green space, the beltway that we have along 3A, that was put into place almost like 30, 40 years ago. It's a great thing, but a lot of the people north of us and south of us have built on 3A. And we've designated a green space. But within that green space, there's a lot of wetlands. So you can't necessarily build and put businesses there. Plus, the other fact is, a lot of the businesses, whether it's Shaw's, Stop and Shop, some of those big stores have already planted themselves in Cohasset and Marshfield. So that's another problem. Yes, we do have Greenbush. Greenbush is probably the next growth area in this town for the next 50 years. And it's a lot of potential that can generate tax revenue going forward. And then we get back to Hummerock. People forget about Hummerock. There's a business district down there. And there's some property for sale and nobody's bought it. So at least we forget Hummerock. So we have 4 different business areas that we as a town, the Chamber of Commerce, you folks who are sponsoring this, the merchants in North Scituate, the merchants down on Front Street, are trying to promote business. And the one thing that I think everybody here, if you don't know about, should be proud of, is that the harbor has been designated a cultural arts district. Again, to try to bring in arts, history, recreation, to kind of bring people, draw people down here to our town, because it is a very charming town. But we compete with the Route 58, 53s, and the 123s. And do you want your town to look like 53 in Hanover? I don't. Do you want it to look like Washington Street in Norwell? I don't. So we have to be very cautious. What businesses are you looking to attract? Are you looking to have big buildings just for offices? Well, it's a great idea, but there are a lot of office buildings, whether in Pembroke, Norwell, or Hanover, that are not being used. So it's a very difficult question. Yes, I'm allowed to have the solution, but I think we have the solution, which is to continue to do what we're doing in the harbor, to take a look at Greenbush and slowly develop it the way it should be, and ultimately have a decision on how maybe together we can bring in both phases for the Tree Streets as well as North Scituate to make a better North Scituate village that will be a draw. That would be my solution. Thank you.
out here in town, we had a lot of smaller stores down on Front Street. We had the Scituate department store, we had Cone Shoes, we had places that you could go down to in the harbor to get your staples that you needed. Where do we have to go? We have to go out of town to get all of these kinds of things now. I mean, we have some lovely stores down in the harbor, but really, there's no place to get some of the important things that you need to get. Now, I know that that's not going to really take care of the needs that we need from a commercial base, but if we could keep people in Scituate shopping rather than having to send them out of town, maybe we could supply some of the commercial base that we need. I do think that we have an awful lot of small restaurant kind of things, and I find it fascinating that they're as busy as they are, but that's great, and if food is where people want to spend their money, that's wonderful to help out the commercial base. But as these guys say, there's a lot of wonderful green land in this town, and I would hate to see strip malls or something like that going on to 3A. Not that there's a lot of area, because most of it's being used up by residencies and the water shed issues and stuff, but Greenbush would probably have to be the area that you would try to develop with the train there, and get some of the out-of-town people that are coming here to pick up the train to spend some of their money within the out-of-town. So Greenbush would probably be the only area that could service some type of a big store or commercial-based business.
Okay, I've been removed as moderator temporarily by our debate team, and she would like to just say something.
Okay, so candidates, if you could keep your comments just to under like 2 minutes. Just, we have so many good questions on the index cards that we really want to get through in this session. So thank you so much.
All right, candidates, if you would just keep your comments to 2 minutes, we would appreciate that. We have a lot of questions to go through. Next question. What will you do to privatize getting our roads fully paved, not piecemeal and patchwork that is substandard? Again, I assume this would be for the selectmen.
Well, again, it's a balance, folks. And let me keep my start. I'll keep time, my 2 minute time. It's a balance. Where are you going to get the money? You either take the money from the services that we're providing, whether it's the schools, whether it's your police, your fire, your DPW. We actually get Chapter 90 money from the state, but it's not enough to be able to go through it. We have 110 miles in town. $1 million of money spent will do 2 miles of road. There are a lot of roads that have not been paved in over 40 to 50 years. And so our priorities generally are the main roads. And you're seeing that happen now. But the reality is that you got to find where you're going to get the money from. If you take money to do the roads, then you got to take away from somewhere else. The only source that you could get is, again, from you folks. You got to raise taxes. I don't want to raise taxes. But you have to kind of do it piecemeal. These problems we have inherited over years. So if this had been done adequately, it wouldn't be the way it is today. And we as a board have put together a 5-year rolling capital plan that started in 2012 because we realized there are so many problems. And I disagree with my fellow campaigner here that, you know what? $60 million of capital are things to maintain buildings, things to maintain equipment, things to maintain the infrastructure, that if we had been doing this year in and year out, we wouldn't be faced with what we're faced right now. So right now, the question comes down, how do you fund it? That's the reality. And I'm, for one, not taking away from the services because I think the town services are the most important. But we do have to address the needs for the roads. And little by little, we'll address them, just like we're trying to address all these other problems. So my solution is not an easy one, but it's a real one, and it's realistic. Otherwise, you can say, we'll fix the roads. Let's fix them. But how? That's the real question. How are you going to do it? Where are you going to take it from? Thank you. 4 seconds to spare.
We could go back and forth with this preventative maintenance thing, but maybe we'll do it personally at a different time. I just have to go back to a selectmen's meeting that I was at just recently, and the DPW was there, and they said something about, we're going to start digging up this road and this road and this road to do water, which is great because we all know the water needs to be fixed. And one of the selectmen asked, when are we going to pave the roads that we already dug up before we start digging these other ones up? And there was no answer. And unfortunately, the person that asked the question, the selectman, didn't push it. But I guess it's something that I don't have the answer to right now. But I need to understand why we can't finish a project that we've already started before we start digging up new roads. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I live on Country Way and my cars are trash right now. And it's been over a year. And there's many other streets that are the same way. And like I said, when the selectmen ask, what are we doing about it, they don't get an answer. So I guess I need to do some research and find out the answer to this question, but I don't understand why we're spending money digging up new roads and not finishing the roads we already started. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a few things going on in town. We have the water pipe replacement, which I'm going to explain that in about 15 seconds, hopefully. When they dig this up and they put the pipes in, they do an initial coating, which will eventually sink. They have to let that sit for about 6 or 8 months, and then they will come in and do a final. What we've asked DPW to do on this new project, still staying on the water pipes for a second, is we want to get an idea when we're going down the street, is that street need to be paved? If it does, it's going to be a question of, personally, I don't want to take road money out of the water fund, the enterprise fund. I would rather use Chapter 90 funding and get those roads on the list. There is an existing list, bad to not so bad, that sort of thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we need to accelerate the program on getting the roads fixed. We've gotten more Chapter 90 funds since the Governor Baker has been elected, and we need to start using that money, get the roads fixed, have a plan. Like the seawalls were done, the worst one's done, and we've got a plan in place to get those taken care of at the same time. As Selectman Denny said, there's a lot of bad roads. My road happens to be okay. You cross the street, they're a disaster, and we need to get them fixed. We need to get them fixed, and again, as they are digging them up for water pipes, I think we need to look at those to go curb to curb. Thank you.
As I was listening, I was thinking it would be nice to finish a project before we get started on something else. And I know that the water pipe replacement project is extremely important within the town. But good thing we didn't have a terrible winter, because the roads would have been even worse than they were. But completing a project, I think, is very important. And I hope that they wouldn't take it out of the waterways fund. I mean, if that's what's supposed to be going to our harbor and stuff like that, I would not like to see that going to roads. But there must be a way to take some funding, figure out where it can come from, and catch up with the roads that need to be fixed. And it may take a couple of years, but do the worst ones and as an ongoing project to get it caught up, like the rest of the neglectful maintenance that we've had within the town. So, piece by piece, little by little, and see what happens. Thank you.
Can I just have a point of clarification? I don't need the microphone. It's just so you understand, those. There's a water enterprise fund and the waterways. I was speaking of the water. It has nothing to do with the waterways. Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, there are other candidates here, and I know Kevin Collins is our library trustee, and I actually have a question for Kevin. What is the definition of pasteurized?
That's when you look at where the cows are.
No, actually, that would actually be too far to see. Past your eyes is too far to see. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, I think we're back to the selectmen. I would be interested in learning your position on the new mooring regulations proposed by the harbor master. As a boat owner, this is of great interest to me.
Two minutes, really. It's a travesty. I don't know how else to put it. They came to us at Waterways a month and a half ago, and we spent an hour and a half talking about the first issue that they wanted to change, and never came up with a conclusion. So we set up a working group to figure out I'm sorry I say they again, but it's the harbor master and whoever's asking him or pushing him to do these things, because I don't think he understands the harbor enough yet to understand all of the issues that he's talking about. But as a couple of quick explanations of what's going on, there's a rule on the books right now that if a husband and wife own a boat together and one or the other dies, the mooring automatically goes to the other person. Well, that's going away. He wants to do away with that, which makes absolutely no sense to me at all. Why would you want to not have the spouse be able to do it? And a lot of times, the husband and wife are on the title together. So that saying that, he wants to change the fact that you can't have more than one name on a title. There's no 50-50 splits of votes, there's no 33-33-33. So if somebody buys a $150,000 boat and there's 3 people that are going in on it so that they can race, because that's about the cost of a racing boat, you can't do it with 3 guys, or 3 women, or 3 voters. It has to be done with one person's name. And there's dozens of other changes. The waiting list for moorings, which is 10 to 12 years right now, my old 2 minutes, is being totally blown up and being changed. And all of it is making the harbor much less friendly. And transients are already getting the word that we're thinking of doing these things, and they're talking about not even coming here anymore. So it's just a huge issue that as a town that lives around the harbors and the rivers, harbor and the rivers, we can't do this. It's just going to blow up everything, and it's not necessary. So I hope that you all come out for the next Waterways meeting, or Thursday night for the working groups meeting, to find out what these rules and regulation changes are, and you can voice your opinions on what they are also.
I have looked at all the points, and I have to agree, Keith is explaining a little bit better than it was explained to me. Things like that, I had heard about people having names put onto titles and stuff on moorings, and then it could be passed from one to the other. I didn't realize it was a married couple who was involved in that. So I'm going to be honest, I need to look at this a little bit more before I actually give my judgment on it. But the way that Keith just described some of the items, I would have to agree with him. So, thank you.
So, I really don't have an opinion on it. The rules, regulations actually stand as they stand now. We as the Board of Selectmen appoint the waterways, the members to them. Now they evidently are looking into the rules to try to modernize them, bring them up to date, in conjunction with the Harbor Master. So those have not come to the Board of Selectmen. And we haven't even seen a revised proposal yet. But when we do, I'll look at it. And like we do with a lot of committees and boards who decide to revise any of their regs or rules or policies, we look at it. So at this point, it's not come to my board for us to take a look at and give you an informed opinion of what they are. So that's the reason why I don't have an opinion on it at this time.
Quick point of clarification, though, the Waterways is not asking for these changes. We're rebutting these changes because they're so bad.
You're rebutting that. I've yet to hear from the Waterways themselves as a full body to the Board of Selectmen. And when they do, we'll take your opinion, or whoever will be on the board will take your opinion and their opinion and recommendations.
I've been fortunate enough to have grown up in Scituate Harbor. My family, since 1962, has had a mooring in the harbor. My dad's had his mooring since 1962. And I have my own little Mercury mooring that I bought my boat in when I was a freshman in high school, and the mooring came with it. Moorings are a big revenue for this town of Scituate. We have transients that come in by the dozens on the weekends, which gives money to the town, which they come into town for their dinners, they walk around the shops. I mean, and if we use up all these moorings and I think that what they're trying to do, and I could very well be wrong, but they're looking to give up the moorings to the people that are on the lists, which is just fine and wonderful. But that leaves nothing for the transient members of boats to come in. Scituate is the only harbor between Boston and the canal that's easily accessible to these transient boats. It takes you an hour to get into Plymouth. You can't get into Green Harbor because the tides, at low tide, there's no water. So Scituate plays a huge role for the boating community of people that are cruising for the summertime. I would hate to see transients not being able to come into the town. But I will agree with Keith, and we're very involved in this also, because one name on a mooring, one name on a boat, one name on documentation is going to wreak havoc. If there's a divorce, the wife wants to keep the boat, and her name's not on it, then the whole thing gets lost, and that's not right. I think that we really have to take a serious, deep look at how that's going to affect the boating community, the boating people in the town, and the transients that come through. Thank you.
So on the topic of water, the flood insurance program must be reauthorized. That is a statement, not a question. So their question is, what must the town do to make sure the program remains viable and affordable?
Okay, so NFIP, or the National Flood Insurance Program, was started in, I think, just prior to 1970. Scituate got involved in this in the late 70s. And what it basically does is it allows affordable rates for people who live along the coast or in floodplains. So what I would do is what I did 3 years ago when we had the Bigger Waters Act coming into play, which was going to eliminate this. We have to make sure it gets reauthorized and it's a viable option for homeowners. The way to do that is exactly what we did before, is to work with Representative Cantwell and newly elected Patrick O'Connor as new senator, as well as Garrett Bradley, and then like Stephen Lynch and people on the federal level to be able to get this thing, to make sure it gets reauthorized. I remember that when the Bigot Waters was originally passed, and I think within 6 months they realized that the damage it was doing, and the whole article was recalled. If people don't have this, we have to remember that depending on these new flood maps, and I haven't got a chance to honestly to see the homes that are involved, but we're somewhere between 30 and 39% of our tax base here in Scituate are involved in this program. The houses that are paying 30 to 39% of our tax, they're involved in this program. So we need to make sure it gets reauthorized. And again, to do that, we have to work with our state and federal officials. Thank you.
The Mariner asked us this question 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think we all agree, and we all said the same thing. Even though we don't agree with the flood maps and there's still issues with them, they need to be approved and they need to be voted on in town meeting and passed. There's no other option. They have to be passed. there's huge ramifications if we don't pass the maps. And I know people won't be happy about it, and I think I wrote in my thing, people want to fight FEMA. We can't. If we get dropped off of this because we don't pass these flood maps, we'll lose funding when we have storms. People will have to go out and find their own insurance, which will be way more money than we're paying right now. And I think my last comment was that as an extreme, if whoever's holding your mortgage doesn't accept the insurance that you pick or the carrier that you picked, they can call your mortgage. That's how drastic this can get. So we have to pass the maps is the bottom line to keep the flood insurance the way it is or close to where it is. David Ball said at the last selectmen's meeting that the other key to this is to make sure you pay your premiums and don't let them lapse before anything else happens. I believe he said 60 days before is the ideal time to pay them. So in order to keep them and keep the rates as low and as good as they are, we need to pass the maps.
First thing you have to do is you got to pass the maps, whether you like them or not. They got to be passed, bottom line. The second thing is for those people who are actually still in areas that are incorrect, inaccurate, these transects, 25 in Scituate alone, we as a town have to do one of two things. Either appeal it from there, which could be into litigation or court, or do what's called a letter of map revision, a LOMAR. Each one costs $1,000. Regardless, I personally feel the town needs to pay for that because as a town we have to accept inaccurate maps for our citizens. If the town accepts the maps believing they're right and the citizen wants to appeal it on his or her own, they're free to do that. But we're accepting them knowing they're wrong, so we have to make sure that we protect those people. The other things we need to do is we need to continue to work through our CRS, that's the community rating system, that helps improve our flood insurance. You have to mitigate different structures, in other words, whether they're roads or whether it's a sewer treatment plant or whether there are seawalls or foreshore protection. In other words, we got to continue to go forward to try to improve the areas that are flooding. A pumping station, I know in Oceanside, definitely, we need to consider that. The other aspect we have to do is continue to elevate homes. It improves your insurance rates, it improves your rating, it also helps the town in the long run. And then ultimately, like I say, you get to seawalls. You're gonna need to build more seawalls. You gotta replace them. $70 million for all the seawalls we have. We already have allocated and appropriated $13 million towards that problem. It's not enough. We got to continue. We're going to continue to deal with that issue. Water's an issue. Roads are an issue. Seawalls are an issue. Senior centers are issues. You can't do one at a time and then stop. You got to deal with them jointly because it's a big problem on the seawalls. So we're trying to address that. But like I said, you got to pass the maps. Thanks.
And I will agree with that. I think that you do have to pass the maps. I don't know that I totally agree with that, but I think you're forced into having to pass the maps so that the people that live along the shoreline do have the benefit of being able to get insurance claims. The other thing that has come to my attention in making an education out of a lot of this is that the jetty needs to be addressed at the entrance to the harbor. And that protects our harbor, it protects our Front Street shopping area. You know, these are all little things that, not little, they're huge, that need to be addressed and that have to get taken care of in order for us to keep Scituate the quaint little seaside village that we would like to keep it to be. So, unfortunately, I think that yes is the right answer. You have to approve the maps.
So we have another question regarding flooding and water. So this statement here is a coastal concern about the flood water that sits on Oceanside Drive Avenue for days, and it was asking about a need for a drain pipe like Jericho Road, or how can we fit this? This is to the selectmen.
Okay. Well, clearly there needs to be some kind of a pump down in Oceanside because, I mean, since I was a kid,
it has flooded in there. I understand that there is a pump back in there, but it doesn't drain out, or it locks and it doesn't drain, it lets it in, but it doesn't let it flow out, or, but yeah, for the people that live down there, that's not right. That's, that's a town issue and it needs to be addressed. So whatever the DPW can do to help get the water back on out of there. If not, maybe it comes a time. I mean, Mother Nature's going to win here, so maybe some of these houses just are not meant to be there, and Mother Nature's going to take care of it itself. So, but we need to get a pump down in there to pump it all out. Thank you.
Well, I said earlier, you're going to need a pump on Oceanside. Again, it comes to how do you finance it? How are you going to do it? You got to find a way to pay for it. But the reality is we have to. And there is a drain right now, and the drain goes out. The downside is the drain drains, when the flooding comes over, it levels, there's no way of forcing it out, which means you need to have a pump. And there are a lot of people, a lot of property owners who live down there who pay a lot of tax money. And you know what? They deserve it. They deserve a pumping station. Plus, it also can reduce the risk of damage for their homes and their property, which also reduces the FEMA and all these issues with trying to get reimbursement from it, which is a whole project, a whole system. It's not one issue alone. You can increase the size of the walls to raise the height. That's one solution. It's also maybe pushing out the embankment. In other words, what we're doing in North Scituate with beach renourishment. But then there's a pumping aspect to it. So the people in Oceanside deserve that. And that's another thing that we need to put into the priority list of getting done. Thank you.
Again, it's pretty much the same answer. There has to be a pump down there. I like the idea of higher walls, but again, there's a cost to that, so we need to figure that one out. Bottom line is there should be a pump and it has to be taken care of. I'm not sure what the cost of that is. I'd love to see the study and figure out what that is going to be. But bottom line, like John said and like Phyllis said, there has to be a pump.
Well, so what happened was we had some major breaches of the seawall, basically. It flooded basically from 7th to 10th Avenue, and it was flooded for about approximately 30 hours with the water not going anywhere. So DPW went down, they took a camera, they put it into the drain, and this was sort of an abnormality because it doesn't usually stay flooded for this period of time. So Kevin Cafferty and Sean, they ran a camera through, and what they discovered was there was debris, which usually catches on the screening, but believe it or not, what was causing the problem were someone shooting golf balls into the drain. So there were a ton of golf balls that were blocking it up with the debris. I'm just joking. I mean, he's a golf pro. But anyway, so as they cleaned that out, the water did dissipate. But a pump is needed there, as well as regular maintenance on the grate itself. So thank you.
So this question is again for the selectmen. Sorry to school committee, housing authority, and the library trustee. I've heard a lot of references to, quote, coming up with money somehow, or, quote, find other ways to fund projects, roads, senior center, etc. I'm wondering if the opponents to any future overrides have specific, concrete ideas to raise these funds.
Opponents, right? You said?
Yeah.
Well, as I said earlier, okay, that's the real issue that we as a town are going to have to confront. How to pay for these things, because there are all these needs. And you either do it through taxes, whether it's property or excise tax, or you get state grants, or you get monies from the state, or you try to apply for some kind of grants from the feds, which obviously are not coming anytime soon, or you try to find some other way of increasing your tax basis, of which we've been trying to do, and it's not a simple solution. The end result are, how are you going to pay for them? And the only way you can pay for them right now as a town is to decide whether or not this is a real need that you want. And if you don't, then you're going to vote against it because you're going to have to increase your taxes.
As much as I hate to say that, that's the real truth of the matter. So we can talk platitudes and say, we need this, we need that, I support that, I'm with you on it. But it really comes down to how are you going to do it? So I am a proponent, like I said, of trying to figure this out. We can try to work within our budget, but it's not going to be timely. That's the problem with the roads. We're trying to work through that. But if you want to get it all fixed at once, then you got to increase your taxes and spend $10 or $15 million to do it. So again, I'm interested to hear my opponent. I'm interested to see what the people think, who are running against both Marty and me, to say how are you going to fund it, because that's the real issue. How are you going to fund these wants or needs? Thank you.
Well, we're in a position in this town that we really can't afford to take on too much more. It's a shame that we didn't take on all these drainage, the roads, and all these other issues prior to jumping into a $75 million school. If we had maybe done something with if we had gone for a $40 million school and not a $75 million school, we might have had some extra cash around within the town to take care of the needs that need to be done. I mean, yeah, we got a real problem that somebody's going to have to deal with. How are we going to deal with it? Okay, grants, and it's going to be baby steps. I mean, there's no, and whether you cut back on some of the other areas in the funding, and it takes time. I have not looked at all the financials that thoroughly, but I have some ideas, and you have to go back and find out where you can cut back a little bit here to pay Peter to steal from Peter to pay for Paul, and accommodate all the things that need to be done within the monies that we're taking in now. I will not want to make it financially tougher on a lot of the people in the town. It just can't happen. It just, if not, then you're asking a huge percentage of the people that have served this town well, and I certainly have done my fair share of volunteering within the 40 plus years that I've been around, between the schools and churches and activities that we've done. And maybe we need to figure out a way through some of these other committees that we have in town to help out.
I'm for buying green land and for making the areas that we have bigger and better. But I think we have pieces of land in the town that can be sold off that are not green right now. Like the firehouse, I believe it's on Mitchell. I know there's some kind of a title issue with it, but it's just sitting there. It's been sitting there for years. $250,000, $300,000, somewhere in that range. The senior center. One of the plans that I've heard, they want a freestanding building behind the new library. We have a 9-acre parcel behind the library. How are we going to fund that? Is it selling gates and using some of that money to help build a senior center and to do the other things we need to do? I think that needs to be looked at. Yet I was at the last committee meeting, and that's not one of the plans that are on the table, is selling gates. So I'm not sure how that's going to work into it. And like John keeps saying, I think it's going to be up to all of us to make the decision when the time comes on what's going to happen. But I don't have the exact addresses, but there are other parcels in the land in the town that aren't green that I think we can sell. What's that again?
Pier 44.
I think Pier 44 would make a great senior center, but that's another whole talk we can have some other time.
What about the boat? We bought the boat. We bought Pier 44. And now we have all these problems coming up. How the hell can it be blindsided?
So there are pieces that we can sell out there to help in these costs, and just to blindly say we're going to have to increase taxes, I don't think that's the way. I think we need to look at all of these different outside of the box ideas to make these things happen.
Well, there is no magic wand. As I said earlier, and what Keith just sort of touched on again, is we need to look at what we have left for properties, figure out what we're going to do with them. A lot of them do have value. We can cut some of our costs by doing that. But there is the possibility that we're going to, I don't even like the word override, but there are things that have to be done. For 30 plus years, a lot of these things were just pushed forward. I've been elected for 3 years, and a lot of this stuff has come up within the 3 years, and we're faced with all of these issues. And, you know, maybe it makes us popular or unpopular, but we can't allow these children to go to Gates School anymore. That had to be done. We were faced with possibly doing a renovation job, which would have probably ended up costing us, without the MSBA part of it, we probably would have spent the same amount of money on an override for what we would have had to do with that building. The public safety building, there's children that were killed in Minot because of response times to Minot. The West End has terrible response time. We needed to do a public safety building. The library, it was a perfect opportunity to get a library done. And as we see now, is as they started to take it apart, that it's a good thing we did do that, because we don't know what would have happened to that wing over the children's library. Would it have fallen down? It was built by the federal government in 1978. I don't know if there were permits done back in '78, but apparently they didn't seem to get it inspected. But again, there is no magic wand. I hate the thought of an override or taxes, but there are things that have to be done in this town. We cannot ignore them. And it's always up to the townspeople to vote for these things. It's not up to the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Maybe if I could just step away from the system for a little bit. Again, Stephen Coulter is here from the Housing Authority. Does anybody have a question specific for Steve? Yes.
Steve, I had heard that the place that they originally were going to put the senior center is now being designed for housing behind the Central Park?
Yeah, that's not actually the case. The land that was supposed to be for the senior center is a parcel that is directly behind our central school property. We are in the process of seeking proposals to develop some affordable senior rental property on the existing large parcel land that the Housing Authority does own, but that is not the parcel that the town owns. That was what was going to be where the senior center was to be.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sure.
The parcel of land that's on the corner of Newcanton Driftway, can you tell me what is going to be done with that?
Sure. 7-acre.
Repeat the question, please.
The question was, what is to be done with the parcel land on the Driftway and New Kent Street? That's a parcel land that the Housing Authority had looked into potential to develop over the course of many, many years. It is something that we are still in the process of considering. We are working on a project behind the central school building right now to see what we can do. We feel that would be an easier first step for us to be able to do. And then phase 2 would be to move on to the Driftway property once we get that complete.
I guess I didn't understand you what on that project.
Well, ideally, we would be to do what the Housing Authority was given the land to do, and that's to develop affordable senior rental housing.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a question for the school committee, and it is, what is your opinion on Common Core education?
One of the best assets Scituate has are its schools. Good education is very simple. You have good teachers and you have small class sizes, you're going to produce overwhelmingly
qualified students to go on to college or to enter the workplace. Unfortunately, the former governor sold out Massachusetts school system to the federal government for $250 million. A lot of that $250 million went to the Department of Education, to mid-level managers, think tanks, to put mandates on the cities and towns in Scituate. I have always felt that money would be better spent on the federal and state level to assist struggling school committees and let the successful school committees do what they do best, which is to provide good education for their children. So I was not in favor, nor am I in favor of Common Core, and it remains to be seen what the effect of it will be with high-stake testings. It appears we're going to have a mix of PARC and MCAST. PARC was an initial disaster, in my opinion. Students didn't take it seriously. Very few people took it seriously. We do have to have high-stakes testing, so it'll remain to be seen what happens. Again, Scituate knows how to educate its students. It's made a commitment forever to good education, and has always been a quality education at reasonable prices, believe it or not. It's hard to say that when you look at a over $30 million budget, but we do. Again, we can better educate our students on ourselves without state mandates. Education, Rich will tell you, education, fads come and go. This new fad, in my opinion, needs to go quicker than other educational fads come and go.
Common Core is really basically an attempt to standardize learning throughout the whole country, but maybe call me an elitist a little bit if you want, but coming from Massachusetts, we usually have pretty good sense of what should be done and what shouldn't be done. I believe in local control more than anything else, and so when I see things being forced upon us through the federal and state levels, especially when something as close to my heart as education, I don't like it at all. The PARC exam, to me, is an offshoot of the Common Core, and I particularly don't like it, number one, because it's actually constructed by a foreign country. It's an English company that's creating a test for us. When we were first introduced to Common Core, when it was first coming before us as a board, one of the questions I was asking is it going to be watered down? How rigorous is the Common Core? And these questions never really truly get answered. Supposedly there's a piece that individual states can put their little spin on some of the Common Core, and that is where this MCAS 2.0 supposedly, I think, is trying to ease the uprising that happened last year. Many students in Scituate opted out of PARC last year because of this sentiment out there about the Common Core and PARC. In the original Common Core grouping, I think originally there was something like 28 states that signed on. By the time PARC started to be given, it was down to 11. So a lot of people, I think, are taking a long look now at this whole process and reevaluating it. I believe MCAS for years was considered one of the most rigorous tests in the country. We did a great job then. I think we should just do it ourselves again.
And again, if I could just take a moment, we do have Kevin Carlton from the Library Trustees. If anybody has a specific question. Anybody out there at all? Okay, Kevin, maybe I could ask you one more question. Who is the least guilty of all our presidents? It would be Lincoln. He was innocent. Thank you very much.
So I actually have a question for the school committee. So as a babysitter, I often talk to the children I babysit for about what they're doing in their elementary schools. And one of the things that one of the girls told me that they're not doing is the DARE program, which I personally loved going through, and I know a lot of my peers loved it too. I was just wondering, in response to Scituate being above the national average of opiate use and drug use, if you would consider reinstilling that program into even middle schools or the elementary schools again.
Right. The DARE program, I believe, was dropped about 3 years ago, I think. Each school, the elementary schools and the middle school and the high school, do have courses and ways in which to deal and discuss these problems. It was a recent question, I think it's coming out, I don't want to give away people's thunder. Oh no, it came out today, I believe, in the Mariner, talking about the fact of binge drinking and alcohol and drug use in Scituate. And there are programs, effective programs, that are working in the elementary schools with Open Circle, in the middle school with Second Step, and in the high school with what they call social norms theory, where they try to make kids realize that their perception of what is normal and what everybody's doing is really not the reality of it all. So as far as the DARE, I believe that wasn't a direct decision by the school committee, but I believe one of the reasons why they were dropping it, it was proven that it had sort of outlasted itself, that it was not getting the same reaction from the students when it was originally set up. So they were looking for more effective means at this time.
And, Rich is correct that at the time it was felt that maybe the school should look at something different than DARE. I personally would like to talk about the DARE program again. I know there were budgetary concerns. The schools traded off funding that position with resource officers at the high school. So obviously there's a huge problem throughout the country and in Scituate. I'd be happy to look at DARE again if it ever comes before the school committee if I'm elected, because I was one person who was sad to see it go. It also had to do with the retirement of the DARE officer. But it was felt that this was an opportunity to look at something different. So I'd be happy to revisit that question again.
I'd like to just add on a little bit. Of course, we have a wonderful organization called FACTS now in Scituate, and we're learning an awful lot about how to deal with some of these situations and how to present parents and students with some educational opportunities to learn more about it. It's done a wonderful job, and it works closely with the schools.
Okay, so we're going to go with question 4. According to Youth Risk Behavior Survey, Scituate High School students are binge drinking at higher rates than their peers across the country, 26% versus 19%. What is the town/school system doing well now, and what can be done to address this culture of acceptance?
For the selectmen. All right. So, presently, binge drinking has been a major problem for the town since I've been here. About 10 years ago, 12 years ago, you'd hear about some poor person who ended up passing away because of a car accident. Unfortunately, now we've got heroin coming in, or OxyContin, or fentanyl actually is the more recent drug of choice. And so, as a town, we have to deal with this going forward collectively. DARE program is a good program. I agree with Mike and Rich. I think it's a program that we should probably reconsider instituting in our elementary schools. FACTS is a phenomenal program. Collaborative that works with the town, initially with volunteers, but now works in the town as a part of it, who actually received a grant of over $625,000, not tax money. Tax money officially from the feds, but not our tax money as far as our property taxes go. It was a grant for 2 years, and now it's 3 years. The bottom line is that we as a town need to continue to address this at all levels of our grades and as adults, collectively. It can't be just pushed onto families because the problem you run into is that's not working. You know, I've walked around my neighborhood and I see syringes. And you know what? That's in a neighborhood near the beach. It's everywhere. It's a problem. Drinking is a problem. You drive down the street and you see a six-pack of Bud or Bud Light thrown out the window. There are beer cans all over the place. It's not just adults doing it. Primarily, it's the kids. So we as a town need to continue to address it. We need to address it early on. We need to continue it. And with all the hope, with whether it's the churches, whether it's businesses, whether it's the town, whether it's the schools, collectively we just need to reinforce that with the hope that our children will be faced with the choice of doing the right thing as they get older. At some point they take on that responsibility. But yes, we need to continue to address that through our town. Thank you.
Thank you. I also see a lot of the beer cans and the liquor bottles and all that down at the bottom of our street, but I think that the town is doing a lot to try to help these things, and or the kids involved in some of these things, but I think that the parents really have to play a very important role too. And we all as parents, I mean, I've got my 3 children that grew up in the town and went through the school system and the DARE programs and all, but we all travel so fast in our lives to collect the almighty dollar, and the simple things in this wonderful town get pushed to the side. The family night supper time, you know, if we could all just slow down a little bit, get our family time, get some values, get some communication going with the kids at home, maybe that certainly would help. We have all sorts of natural resources within this town that you can maybe pick up a natural high. I mean, walk the beach. I mean, the feeling that you get, and again, that's slowing the pace down a little bit, but try to tell the kids that there are things that they can get their highs off of without taking drugs and liquor and whatnot. You walk through the woods, you see all the wonderful things that Mother Nature has provided within the trees and the mosses and the flowers and the birds and the I mean, the animals. And I was out on the common yesterday morning, and I saw the fox go by with the squirrel, across, but things like that are wonderful. And if you can take advantage of some things like that to give the kids a natural high, maybe they don't have to go looking, and quality family time, they don't have to go looking for something outside to stimulate what they need.
Who's raising his hand? All right, I'm going to take a minute and talk about something that we already talked about, just because I thought of a few more things, and John kind of challenged us and said, I'd like the newcomers to come up with ideas on where we're going to get money. I'm just going to add 2 quick things. We have a windmill that wasn't planned real well, I guess, because of some of the issues it had. And I don't have the exact numbers, but it's somewhere over $400,000 a year we make off of the windmill. Maybe we can
go back to the original question, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
This was our question this week in the Mariner, if anyone has already read it. I started my answer by saying, I hope that we have professionals in place to deal with this issue, because I don't know if the Board of Selectmen, a mooring guy, a lawyer, and a dental person should be making these kind of decisions for the town. I think the programs that are in place are great. And one of the things that I wrote in mine was that when I met with the police chief about this, he told me that more than half of the calls that they go to for children underage drinking at home, the parents are home, which shocked me. And I wrote that in my answer, that if you had told me that was the statistic before I had spoke to him, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's what he said. He said more than half the parents are home. So as Phyllis said a minute ago, I think a lot of it starts at home. And we have to make sure we're setting the right example. And I know we all work 1,000 hours a week and do whatever we have to do. But we have to make sure we're setting the example for the kids that it's not acceptable. And I think that the end of that question said something about the town accepting it. I don't think we are a town of acceptance for this. I think we're working really hard to make sure it's not accepted.
My name is Jack Devine, and Jack, wait 1 second, please, let's let me finish up, okay? That's all right, Jack. No, one more. It's okay. One more.
So we all researched this, and I gave these young ladies my answer, so I had some notes on there. But basically, there's a program in place in the high school, and it's called, I'm trying to read, wait, I do have this for a reason. All right, it's called the C Plan. It's a Scituate Educational Experience. And what they do is they try to educate parents with anxiety and things with the children to try and bring them on board so that the parents are more of an involved part of it instead of people trying to lay it on the teachers. You know, the police do get involved, as Keith was saying, but you know, we've talked, and this is a situation where it really needs to be, the teachers can be an aid, but the parents really have to be involved. And you know, we can't arrest somebody arrest our way out of this particular situation. Anne-Marie Galvin with Facts has been doing an amazing job. And they've been working collaboratively. And Scituate's actually a leader in this. Superintendent McCarthy testified in the State House based upon all these things that they've been doing, and they're really a pioneer in this field. So I just wanted to give kudos to the school committee as well as the school department on what they've done here, as well as Facts. And I think Facts is a great organization. I'm not a particular proponent of DARE. My brother works with, he used to, not anymore, he used to work with the drug DEA. And he said all DARE really is an education program to show kids how they can get involved with drugs. People that aren't really involved with them at the time, it tends to sort of give them more information, and as children are, that may not be a good thing. So they need it is going to be a collaborative effort with the teachers, educators, and the parents, and I think they've got an excellent program in the high schools. Thank you.
Okay, folks, just so you know, I think what we're going to try to do is, with about 10 minutes left, maybe we'll try to do some questions, because we do have a few other questions to go through here.
Starting with this. I think Mike should be done with the plans. Okay, so back to some of the questions I know we heard from the back of what should be done with some of the empty buildings that are in Scituate right now. So I have a few questions right here. What should be done with Pier 44 after the temporary library moves out from there? So if the library trustee has any opinion on that. Also, what is the plan for the Gates building? If we can just kind of put those questions together, that would be great.
We're going to take questions from the floor is what I meant to say, with about 10 minutes left, okay?
Well, I think the use of the Pier 44 building for the library is a very good one for the town, because it did provide space in the community at no additional cost to the community. It came to the town through mitigation money, I believe, from the Green Bush, and that includes funding to repair the building, which was in pretty rough shape. So when the library moves out, the town will have a building in far better shape to use however the town sees fit.
Okay. Great. Yes, I would like to see the town, I'm sorry, hang on to Pier 44. I also think that that would make a lovely senior center for the, you know, being down along the water. There's ample parking down in through there, and one level, And there is a big room in the back. I spent a lot of years hostessing and waitressing down there, so I'm familiar with the building. And if the picturesque Scituate Harbor, I mean, couldn't be more lovely for the seniors to sit outside on a table and watch the harbor go by. And so, at any rate, I would be in favor of trying to do something like that versus at the Gates building. The Gates building, I think, is a treasure to the town. I would hate to see that taken down at 100 years old. I understand from people in the know that the outside shell of that building is probably the best constructed building within this town. Maybe the inside of it's not so hot, but if they can demo it to put the town offices in, I'm sure that they could use it for some other particular mode. I wouldn't be opposed to trying to do affordable housing in there, but I think that in that historic area, in that part of Scituate where you've got the two churches, you've got the GAR Hall, you've got the Common, you've got the Cudworth House, the Lawson, all the history. There's a ton of history right in that area, and it was way back a common meeting area. I would hate to see that building come down, so to find some other, maybe not a drain on the town, but another source of income for the town through that building, but not to take it down.
Is that what I said? Again, I don't want to really give my opinion on Gates. We need to really look at Gates. There's a lot of possibilities there. But like I said, this committee has put so many hours into this. I want to see what they have to say. It has not been presented yet. But the good news is there's option. There's a building that we're going to be able to do something with, whether it be to sell it, whether it be to put all these facilities into there. But that is a positive thing for that building. As far as the Pier 44 building, the Scituate Harbor Community Building, I would like to see it. I don't think it's I'd love to see the seniors on the water. That's not it. I just think that with the size of the building we're talking about in the needs assessment study, I just don't think that would be able to suffice what we need. But certainly a community center or something like that might be along those lines. And again, the Gates thing is going to be happening, looking at that quickly, and then we could certainly have an answer. So thank you.
I can't wait to see what the reuse committee comes back with. Like I said, I was at the last meeting and they have it down to two ideas. I think to refurbish or redo Gates, you're going to run into a lot of the same issues you ran into at the library with asbestos, and who knows what else you're going to find when you take those walls apart. So I don't think it's going to be a small project. I think it'll be huge. Pier 44, I don't know. I know there's, when I said that earlier, there's a couple of people that shook their head at me for the senior center. I'd love to talk to you and find out why you think that, but like Phyllis said, you're on the water, it's beautiful, you're looking out the back. Maybe it's too small, like Marty just said, but I think it's something that could be looked at. And they're within the realm of not raising taxes and making things within what we have right now. So, and as far as the town hall, again, I think we go back to that study and look at the town hall, and maybe we don't have to move the town hall to Gates and spend the money to refurbish Gates and give the town hall a new office. Maybe it's not necessary. So maybe we save that money and use it there.
So, Pier 44, Scituate Community Harbor Building, was a bargain. This town was so fortunate to get it. It was a bargain. And you know what? I'm very proud that the town got it. And now we're using it. We're using it initially for community events, but now we're able to utilize it for the library, for the library to be there temporarily. And it fits within the requirements of the mitigation agreement, educational, recreational. So my thoughts are, if I'm re-elected for the next 3 years, is I'd like to see the moment the library goes out that we move the senior center directly to Pier 44 to be able to use it temporarily until we find a long-term solution for them. I think it makes sense. It's a part of recreation because of the programming. certainly it goes to the requirements of the mitigation agreement for teaching. That being said, the gates is another solution, and that's going to be a decision that you folks are going to have to come up and decide what you want to do. Now, I know the adaptive building reuse have come up with 2 options they're going to present to the board next month. They're very interesting. I was actually at the meeting last week to hear it, and it's fascinating. One solution is to tear down the building completely. It's going to cost probably $700,000 or $800,000 just to do that alone. The other options could be to repurpose it for purposes of senior housing. Maybe you could repurpose it for open fields. But those decisions are going to come to you folks to decide ultimately. The board will make some recommendations, but you'll have to decide it. Personally, I like the building. I think it's very charming when you come up around the Cud House, way in and around. But the bigger question is, do you really want to preserve it for long term? And that's the reality. Is it significant enough historically that you want to preserve it? I will say the Cudworth House is really nice to preserve, and if it were open field, so be it. But I could also envision a senior center there, not at Gates itself, but behind it. So ultimately, those decisions are going to be yours. I personally, like I said, I'd love to see it preserved, but then it comes down to the dollars and cents, the priorities. And to me, if it means a senior center, I would say, for purposes of a senior center, that's important if it's a separate building or somewhere else. Or ultimately, if the town decides to put it in Gates, then so be it. But again, I come back to all of us. It's a decision that you folks, we all together are going to have to make. Thank you.
If I could just say one more thing about Pier 44. It's a piece of town property that's sitting on the waterfront. We don't have a lot of waterfront property that's available for the town residents to use. We have the Marine Center and Pier 44, and you can go out around the lighthouse, but the majority of it is privately owned. If we let that piece of, and I realize it would be, a intake for one time, and you'd collect the taxes on it, but you've lost that parcel, and you're not going to get it back. I always thought a little fish, lobster hut, have the local lobstermen supply the lobsters, and you get everybody else from other towns to come in and get their lobster salad sandwich or sit and have their, food seems to be big in this town, but the kitchen's gone, so then, that kind of takes that out. But letting go of that piece of property, I think would be a shame to the town, even though it might bring in a little bit of revenue, but I see that as an asset to the town myself. But so if we could find some other use to use it, because it is one of the last sections of the harbor, on the harbor. Thank you.
All right, folks, this will be the last question of the evening. And I will repeat, earlier when I did ask about the least guilty of the presidents, it was Lincoln because he was in a cent, in a penny. I just... Did we all get it now? Thank you.
All right. Okay, so the final question we will end this meeting with is, what is the most important issue facing the town today?
Drugs and alcohol. There's a lot of issues we can talk about. The roads, taxes, all that, but drugs and alcohol with these children. And it's becoming more and more difficult, especially with the heroin epidemic. And we just had a conversation with the chief the other day, finding out that heroin's not even the drug of choice anymore. It's fentanyl, which will kill you very quickly. So to me, that's the most important thing. And I can't go again to say Anne Marie Galvin's doing an amazing job, and that's one of the best things that we ever got involved in. So, thank
you. Well, drugs and alcohol are right up there. I think taxes are the #1 issue for the town. We really, again, the ideas that were requested of me earlier, taxes are running away with us right now, and they need to be taken care of. And I understand that, as I said earlier, we're not going to rehash all the stuff that's already been voted and it's already in there and there's nothing we can do about it. But taxes, I think, is the issue in the town right now.
2 minutes? Just check. Sea rise. That's the real issue. It's a problem today, and it's going to be a problem tomorrow. And the water's rising. That's the bottom line. So we as a town need to think about short-term measures of what we're going to address, how we're going to do midterm, and then ultimately pass on to the future generations what they're going to do in the long term. To me, that is a major issue, not just for us. It's a major issue for all the coastal communities, including the city of Boston. You know, in 100 years, you could see 9 feet actually rising around here. Now, we're not going to be here for it. I hope we would be, but presumably we're not. So we need to start addressing that long term and pass that torch on to each generation and each board to address it going forward. Thank you.
Okay, and mine is keep it affordable. Keep the seaside charm of the town and make sure that the residents of the town, before going to vote on something, completely understand everything that's going on to make it of the right decision. There's just too many times that, you know, people didn't know and they didn't know and they didn't know whether the information was out there or not, but the transparency has to be upfront. Thank you.
All right, I think what we'll try to do is we do have about 5 or 10 minutes, so maybe we will take a couple questions from the floor. Jack?
Basically, this is more of a island of volunteer facts with Anne Marie Galvin, and I wanted to say thank you, Marty O'Toole, for recognizing Anne Marie Galvin.
More comment, not only the question, also to folks running for school committee. The citizens of this town have been very generous in supporting school projects. I mean, very generous. And when I sat and listened, and I probably should have gotten up and spoken against it, but the school budget, which I believe was a 4% increase, is that right, this past year? They're asking for a 4% increase, I believe.
Sorry, at the top of my head, I'm not quite sure.
If the town is restricted to a 2.5% increase in the tax levy, I think it's unconscionable that the school committee and the superintendent would come to the town and ask for a 4% increase. If you are elected, would you try to keep the school budget increased to something around the 2.5% so that we can live within our means on the school side as well as the municipal side?
No, I mean, we did it within our budget. We balanced our budget. The money that we were given to work with this year, and it wasn't, we didn't ask for more money at that time either. The money that we were given this year as our budget, we balanced the budget and fit into that. So when you talk about the 4%, I'm not 100% sure that I have that back exactly.
I believe it was stated that it was a 4% increase. Oh.
But 4% of, what I'm trying to say is, if the tax rate only increases 2.5%, you can't go up 4%. If they give you a budget based on a 2.5%.
Yeah, and I'm all for education. I'm all for, and these two ladies here tonight are, you know, a credit to the education that we supply. So I'm not against education, but I would just hope that the school committee would look at the figures very closely, and as the municipal side has to pinch every penny, that the school side would do the same.
Right. I think the initial plan or the initial budget was a 4% budget, but it had to get paid back because you can't have spend money you don't have.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Well, one thing that we understand is that there's a fixed amount of money that the town has to spend, both on the municipal side and the school side. And the school committee selectmen negotiate every year as to how to divide up that pie. So the revenues, if they increase, obviously that money is going to be spent because
you know, you talk to the municipal side and they have certain needs that aren't met. The schools certainly have needs that are not met. But there is one budget that we devise between the selectmen and the school committee, and we have worked very well over the years. Some years better than others, but you know, the school wants more of that pie, and the town wants more of that pie. So we do have a formula that works fairly well, and we tweak it a little bit each year based upon the school's needs. When the school has had a problem, the town has stepped up to adjust that formula, and vice versa. So it's a difficult thing because neither side has the resources to provide the services that the citizens want, deserve, and demand. So,
Mine has to do with what John has said. If you put the seniors temporarily into Pier 44, which by the way is in the flood zone, are you going to guarantee that you will move them into a better and bigger building? Because parking-wise, except using public parking down there, you're not going to have that parking space. Plus the fact that it is in the flood zone. If you do more work on it, over 50% by the flood laws, you're supposed to raise it up, which would not be feasible for seniors. Or are you going to say, oh, well, we've taken care of the seniors and put them in this small building that will not accommodate, if you read the article last night in the newspaper about seniors, the baby boomers are coming now, and you as a town need to accommodate them and not say, oh, well, just put them there.
Sure. Maybe I can say it, and I apologize, Jim. I said no, not there, temporarily, I would say. Because right now, we can all agree that Brook Street is the worst situation. I think getting them out of Brook Street is number one. Then the next reason, is to get the library there for temporary purpose. It's a bigger space, the parking is accessible, it's on the ocean, and you're saying putting it in harm's way. I disagree with that, because if that were the case, then you know what, we should tear the whole building down and just keep a public space, period. And I don't see it.
It wasn't arm's way before. In 1978, I think it was, or 91, so it was up to the windows.
My belief is that we should at least consider that, because otherwise, where are they going to go? If the town meeting gets together and convenes, and then guess what? It fails again like it did in 2007. We're going to keep them in Brook Street, and that dilapidated building that we can all agree is awful. I don't think that's the solution. I mean, we have potentially, whatever the adaptive reuse building comes to the board for, then great, option one, option two. I'm all for trying to work through our solutions, but I don't think, and I'm not a believer that we keep them down Brook Street. The building was built in 1837 as a school. It was converted to a fire station in 1920. And you know what? It was never purposed for a senior center. And obviously within 9 years, the people down in the senior center realized we needed to get a new override in 2004 because they started in 1993. So I think, at least for the buildings that we have, we've got to reconsider at least putting the center somewhere else. Or we don't have to. But we know we've been waiting not only 9 years since 2007, we've been waiting 12 years since 2004. And I don't want to wait another 12 years or 9 years to find a location when we know the building that right now we have is inadequate.
And do you have ever, even though it hasn't come up yet, but I understand that insurance companies are great ones to go to for finances for a senior center?
I'll tell you right now, we haven't actually looked at the financing of it. We're looking at the possibilities of where to go. You can't say how you're going to finance the building unless you know what's the building going to do and where it's going to go.
But I
would suggest to you that any options on the table to finance it. And if you know that an insurance company is willing to come and put their name on it, I'll be the first one to say let's name it out.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, folks, I'd like to thank you for the great questions this evening. I'd like to thank the candidates and the incumbents, please. And a special thank you to our championship South Shore League debate leaders, Sarah and Grace. Thank you very much. Good night.
Great job.